Well, Christine, as we're about to start, I'll say that we're very happy to have Mark Blandford here to welcome this session. As many of you know, Mark is Vice President of Senior Care at Providence Health Care, and we're very happy to have him here to, as I said, to welcome and to discuss with us some exciting opportunities that are coming out of Providence Health Care and Providence Living. So I think it's over to Mark.
Well, thanks, Mary Lou. Thank you very much indeed for that kind introduction. My name is Mark Blandford. I'm the Vice President of Seniors Care Clinical Operations here at Providence Health Care and Providence Living on the West Coast. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you as I speak to you today from the unceded traditional homeland of the Musqueam, Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh nations here on the lower mainland of Vancouver. And it's my great pleasure to live, work and play on these unceded territories. And we do thank our First Nations cousins and friends for keeping this land for us to work, live and play on. I think that the main two things I'm going to talk to you about for the next few minutes, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some work that we Providence are doing in dementia care, primarily on Vancouver Island, but also here on the lower mainland. And I usually start these conversations because many of you will be calling in from the West Coast, but many will be calling from other parts of the country, and that's wonderful. I just give a little update on our piece of COVID. And I often will say to people that giving you an update on COVID from our point of view here in Providence, in Vancouver, is really just one piece of that COVID elephant. Wherever you are in the country, you will have experienced COVID differently. The overall effect, I guess, has been the same for all of us: tiring, restricting, worrying, anxiety provoking. But with the hope that vaccines have given us, hopefully everybody's experiencing a change for the positive when it comes to that COVID experience. But it's been 2 years for us, 2.5 years, I guess, since we first got into COVID. It was March 11th here in BC, 2020, when we first had the first public health orders issued. And since then, it's been quite a trying time for everybody. But as I speak to you today, we're coming out of the worst of COVID. Most of our long-term care facilities and in British Columbia are opening up to visitors this very week. We're still maintaining some of those public health measures, masks, requiring tests, requiring vaccinations for entering our long-term care facilities. But we are inviting more people into the facilities, and we're starting to redress that issue of the living part of long-term care. We've certainly stabilized and prevented loss of life through this past 2 years, but I would argue that in doing so, we've stripped away many of the things in long-term care that many of us care about in terms of the residents' experience, the family's experience, and indeed the staff experience. So I think many parts of the country are experiencing the same situation in that we're starting to recover. And I think we can all give thanks for the fact that the vaccinations that most of us have had have played such a big part in bringing us to that point where we can start to live again. So that's our kind of update here at Providence in terms of COVID. We're also at Providence working towards the development of a new hospital, the new St. Paul's replacement. For those of you who may not know, St. Paul's is a 600-bed acute care hospital here in Vancouver, providing tertiary care for the province in the areas of HIV, renal care, and cardiac care. But that hospital is over 100 years old, and many parts of it are over 100 years old. And the new development is actually underway here in Vancouver. The construction has been underway for almost a year now. So we're looking forward to that. And in terms of care for the elderly, we have a very special piece of that project, a new centre for healthy aging is being developed on the ground floor. It's a very large physical footprint. And we're currently working with partners to look at other ways in which we can support elder care here in Vancouver. So more on that one, I'm sure we'll be talking about that in months to come. But just a little tidbit around what we're doing in terms of Providence here in Vancouver. I think you're going to shortly see a video that we created, and I'm sorry I'm in the video. I sometimes think I look a little too corporate in that video, but you're going to see a video shortly which describes kind of our vision for the future. And for many of you, you'll be aware that Providence has a sister organization called Providence Living, which is based on Vancouver Island. And Providence Living has just broken ground, or almost breaking ground. We prepared the site, and we have an official groundbreaking coming at the end of April. But we're about to break ground on a brand new care facility, which we think in the publicly funded realm will set a new standard around managing people and supporting people to live with dementia in an institutional setting. There we go. So maybe just to stay with the first slide for a second, Christine, thanks. So Providence Living operates a 150-bed facility currently called The Views in Comox. And the facility sits on the site of an old general hospital that's been decommissioned, St. Joseph's General Hospital, which was the general hospital for the community of Comox and the Comox Valley for close to 100 years. The hospital's now being replaced by two really lovely looking North Island hospitals operated by Island Health. And so Providence now retains a 13-acre site. Once the hospital's been demolished, we'll have all of the land. And we're replacing the old 140-bed long-term care facility with a new 156-bed facility on the same site. Now, that wouldn't be too unusual. Lots of new long-term care buildings happening across the country. Maybe we can go to the next slide, Christine. What we're trying to do is we're trying to build this facility on the basis of the dementia care approach taken by the De Hoogweg group in Holland. We go to the next slide, Christine. Thank you. One back. So as you can see, the facility is kind of a circular type building, 2 levels. And we're modeling it after that dementia style village that has been pioneered by people like De Hoogweg in Holland. The households are 12-bed households, self-contained. Each household has its own dining room, its own laundry facilities, its own lounge. And the goal is that each of those 12 residents living in that small that household will become a family, as it were, with staff that work in those areas. The goal is to take away the institutional task-driven style of care and create a more home-like environment. Now, there's not much unique in that. Many people across the country are delivering long-term care in a home-like environment. I think it's something we've talked about in this area of care for a long time. But lots of people are doing it very well. What's different for us in Vancouver, on Vancouver Island, is that we haven't managed to deliver it in small single-bed environments like this to any great scale. So we don't have many of these facilities in the publicly funded arena in BC. We certainly have them in the privately funded arena. And so with this building, what we're trying to do is to create that home-like feel in a small-scale environment. Maybe we can go to the next slide, Christine. Again, I think the video you're going to see shortly explains this probably a little better than me going on. But what you can see here is the circular environment. And this is what's so relevant to your presentation today. Today, you're going to hear from 2 experts in the area of using nature as a therapeutic modality. And that's indeed what we're trying to do here. You'll see the central courtyard. The rendering you see here isn't the final design. It really is just kind of a rendering for working purposes right now. But what we'll be doing is designing that interior courtway to incorporate many of the things you're going to hear about today, hopefully. we believe that nature is an important part of keeping people with dementia in touch with their physical surroundings. And for all the reasons you're going to hear today, calming, supportive, and therapeutic for anybody, but particularly for somebody with dementia. Two things to point out. We are a Catholic health organisation, so on the left of the picture you see currently, you'll see it's a chapel, and then the little red building with the red roof, that's actually an Indigenous longhouse. It's a mini Indigenous longhouse, which we've been developing in conjunction with our partners with the Comox First Nation in Comox. So first of its kind, I think it'll be an actual First Nations spiritual space, meeting place for the First Nation community, not just associated with the facility, but from the surrounding community to use. So we're trying to bring the community into the care environment. And then ultimately we will build out the rest of this site. So this building is about 4 acres of the 13 acres. We'll be adding that village piece so that the rest of the village becomes a dementia-friendly community for everybody. We can maybe go to the next slide, Christine. Again, just a couple of renditions of kind of what we expect it to look like. The bottom two pictures actually come from the Dahugwe group. So we're trying to build on using light, the natural environment, as much as we can in all of these cottages. Now, I think what I'll do is I won't use the rest of the slides I have in this presentation. I think I'm just going to go to the video, which is about 10 minutes, I think. And then we may have a time for a couple of questions before we introduce our speakers.
When I get older, I would like to be treated with respect and dignity. Just be treated like how I'm treated now, really. I don't think the aging process doesn't change who you are.
I think it would be very hard if a person hadn't had a full life. You know, they'd be trying to play catch up.
It does take courage to live into your elder years. You've lost some of the physical abilities you had. You may have lost some of the mental sharpness, and people judge.
I think families are trying their best to keep their loved ones at home. But if you have kids and a life and a full-time job and your mom has dementia and she's leaving the oven on, it gets kind of tricky.
Long-term care needs a redefinition. We are now waking up to the fact that our elders have been neglected for a very long time. Sooner or later, it's going to be us who may need to live in these sorts of situations.
The last 30 years have just disappeared. I'm 84 now. I've lived here 5 years. The first year I was in a different wing. It was a 4-bed unit, and that was very difficult, very difficult.
We call it the medical model, the institutional model. The model of care based on large buildings that house many residents in settings that really are not anything at all reminiscent of a home. We like to call them homes, but if you walked into them, you would actually think you were in a hospital. To imagine that it's anything less to elders who are being cared for in those situations is just not realistic.
Institutional model of care is built for the efficient care of the masses. So sometimes that personhood is kind of downgraded a few notches, and their medical condition or their surgical procedure seems to be the paramount thing.
Sadly, their physical needs seem to take precedence over their emotional needs, their spiritual needs, their needs for things that are beyond basic care.
Sometimes when you get caught up in like, oh my God, I gotta get like 12 people up and so-and-so's got, you know, so-and-so's family's coming, so we gotta get them all done, you know, and it's just this constant juggling of time.
We know we're on a bit of a schedule, but we're also relaxed. I'm aware that the girls always have 6 to 10 other issues on their mind. They don't talk to me about it, but I know.
They all want to do their best too, right? Because there's like, well, I would never treat my parents this way. So they all have their own kind of expectation. So when they can't meet those expectations, they're pretty hard on themselves.
And now they're wearing those masks, it makes it harder.
In healthcare, we run often at very fine margins. Our systems are dependent on there not being too many crises, but COVID has taught us that the crises can be long.
None of us at the time had any idea that there was anything to protect us, and certainly nothing to protect our elders, who really died at very dramatic rates, which was a very sad situation. It really put the spotlight on how these elders were living in their facilities, sharing a room with anywhere from 1 other to 3 other residents, separated only by a curtain, and the rapid spread of infection was borne out in those types of situations. So it really is not a way for elders to live.
A pandemic takes away the living part of life. We're forced to isolate people in their rooms. We've been forced to isolate people from their families. That's the challenge for us going forward. Maintaining that safety, that level of rigor that keeps people safe from a thing like COVID, but we have to find ways to maintain the living, the quality of living that is so important to human beings.
We need to move away from medicalizing the end of people's lives, and the shift is towards the social needs.
And the social care has to shift that to being less time efficient and more focused on that individual controlling their own day.
We've got great research from around the world. We know the kind of buildings that work.
There are a few models that are in existence across the globe. One of them in the Netherlands, it's called De Hogewijk. It is a typical village concept, a situation where elders live in small homes with small numbers of fellow residents and live a life that's much more natural. It's truly creating a small home for a small family of residents.
All the homes have 12 beds, 12 rooms with private bathrooms. There'll be a common area and a kitchen that they have access to. We're going to be changing how many people walk through those areas to try to normalize their lives. Like, you don't have housekeepers and you don't have laundry staff walking through your house at home, so they shouldn't be having that here.
So making our facilities and our services appear less clinical, less medical, but still maintaining that medical clinical rigor that people with that level of complexity require.
There'll be a coffee shop there where people from the external community can come into our internal community. And there'll be play structures to try to welcome families when they come in to bring their children. There's going to be a daycare there, incorporating youth with the residents.
It's going to create a natural hub of activity that will be in itself stimulating and interesting, not just for the elders themselves, who will be exposed again to the world outside, but in fact it will also help to expose the children of tomorrow to the elder part of our population.
We're talking about changing a culture of care that's focused on what the resident wants in the moment versus the list of tasks that the worker has to get through.
The infrastructure that we have is not only old, it's wrong. It needs to be corrected. This is going to require redevelopment of virtually every site in the province, if not the country, for the social needs of elders.
It takes courage to get old. It definitely is not an easy process.
I think the biggest thing that it will give for most people is that they won't have to fear living in a care facility the way some people currently do. I think they will see the care facility as an extension of their own home, hopefully. They'll see it as a place that honours their values, their traditions, the interests that they have. And I think they'll see that we can convert our compassion and our hard work into also a day well lived for the individuals.
There's a divine hand that's leading you, whether you believe it or not, and you go with the flow and you learn what there is to learn.
You can't physically touch the success that we're going to have. As supportive as the government is with all of the demands they have, they just can't give us all the funds that we need to do all that work. So I'm extremely grateful to the St. Paul's Foundation for the funds that they already provide us, and hopefully for the funds we'll get in the future. And I'd say to those donors that funding elder care may not be as sexy as a CAT scanner or some other large medical device, but what you will see over the years to come is the life experience of those elders we're looking after, which could very well be your loved ones or you yourself, be something you can be proud of and something that we can be proud of.
So yeah, I hope that video, in the words of residents and staff that are currently at the views, gives you a sense of where we're at. And I think we're quite evangelical about our attempt here. And those of you who have worked in this area will know this is not an easy thing that we're trying to do. But with this new building and with the funding that we've been given, not just through the government, but through the St. Paul's Foundation, we're very determined to really try and replicate some of those ways of doing things that have been pioneered in other jurisdictions. So, you know, please keep us in your prayers for success, because it is not an easy thing that we're embarking on. It's a wholesale culture shift and change. So that, I think, is what we're endeavouring to do. Pass the baton over to our guest speakers. And I don't think I know either of our speakers today. Paul, we may be acquainted. We're in the same part of the world. I was looking at your bio. It's weird that we may not have been, but we probably should be. And Kari, I'm pretty sure we're not acquainted. What got that about right, Paul?
Mark, I think we have met a couple of times over the years, but would have been brief. But I know the great work that you have done. So.
Oh, and you. So yeah, I was pretty sure we met, and I was looking at my LinkedIn to see if we were acquainted, but we should be from here on probably.
Looking forward to that.
So I'm just gonna. Hopefully everybody's read Kari and Paul's bios, but we're really lucky to have two dedicated people to talk about something that I'm pretty passionate about. And we don't have time to talk about what we're going to be doing at the views, but we are going to put in a significant amount of money into trying to figure out how to use nature as a therapeutic medium. And so I'm going to do the recording of this session when it's done. So I'm going to leave you with Mary Lou. I think Kari's going to kick us off. Thank you, Kari and Paul, for making the time to do this afternoon for us. And as I say, I look forward to seeing the recording. And thanks once again, everybody, for your attention on my little piece. Bye for now.
Goodbye and thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mark. And as Mark said, we're very excited to have you. What an opportunity to follow up on what Mark was saying, that we really need to attend to for persons, for older persons who are living in homes, whether it be with dementia or not. So Kari and Paul, and I know you have extra team members with you too. So let us say over to you, and maybe set the stage, and then we'll just have a 3 or 4 minute break, just so people can maybe pick up their plan.
All right, thank you so much. And Paul and I would like to extend our thanks to Manora Khan, our team member who has been able to join us, and she's actually taking care of our technology. So thank you again, Manora. First of all, welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the power of nature. And I'll give you a brief overview of the three of us so that you know who you'll be listening to. I'm a former university professor and a senior research fellow with the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. I'm also a mindfulness meditation teacher, and I currently live on a forest preserve. So that's a little interesting fact for you to know. I'm involved in designing unique nature connection programs for specific populations. And the EcoWisdom Forest Preserve has recently launched the Nature and Forest Therapy Certification Program. For more information, you can see our website. And I'm going to pass it on to Paul so he can introduce himself.
Great, thank you, Kari, and welcome everyone. I am Paul Gauthier. I'm the Executive Director at the Individualized Funding Resource Centre. And I've had the honor of working with individuals with mobility impairments and supporting them being able to fully participate in community. As many people as they get older, or as someone like myself who happens to be a person who uses a wheelchair, accessing home support and caregivers are something that can be a real challenge, and our organization supports people in being able to do that. The IFRC also has been working with EcoWisdom and offering nature connection programs to pathways to independence group of over 500 peer support network. I'm also, just so you know, I'm a Paralympic athlete competing in the sport of bocce ball, and have been honored to be able to go around the world traveling with this sport. My big year was in 2004 when I won a gold medal for Canada, so in the sport of bocce ball. So really happy to be here. If you're wanting more information about the Individualized Funding Resource Centre, please don't hesitate to go to our website. Thank you.
And now I'll invite Manor to introduce herself.
Thank you, Kari. All right, everyone. Hello, I'm Mehnur. I'm an undergraduate student currently at U of T, and I'm hoping to go into medicine. I am a personal support worker. I studied at Centennial College, and ever since I got my certificate, I've been working with seniors at a nursing home, which has been a very big joy in my life. And I'm also an EcoWisdom research assistant and a facilitator. I'm also an artist, which is a fun fact, and nature is one of the big ways that I find a lot of inspiration to create my work. And of course, for any more information, you can always visit EcoWisdom.
So today we're going to be talking about the power of nature and how our connection to nature can support our well-being during COVID-19 and beyond. Next slide. We're going to be talking, after a few introductory comments, about the context of COVID. We've all been through a lot. It's been 2 years, can you believe it? We're going to review some of the research related to seniors, nature connection, and well-being. And then Paul will talk about what is forest bathing and give you some examples. He's also going to share Beth's story, and Beth is a senior who's very involved in our group and attends almost every single session, and she's also a resource person who comes to our training program as a guest speaker. So Paul's going to share her story of how she connects with nature for her well-being, and then we're going to give you a taste of 3 invitations, 3 nature connection invitations. And this is just a taste. Our programs are typically 2.5 hours. So as you can imagine, we have enough time to really form a community and have interaction and even small group sharing. But we really wanted to show you, not just talk to you about nature connection. And we will end with a outdoor tea ceremony. I'll hop outside where we still have about 2 feet of snow. And I'll be offering a concluding white pine tea ceremony. We offer accessible nature well-being programs, and EcoWisdom and Individualized Funding Resource Centre, we partner with an organization called Technology for Living. So this is really helpful because right now, a lot of our programs are online, and so they make sure that our programming is very accessible to people who live with disability or who are in various circumstances. We've been very fortunate to receive small grants funding through the TD Park People Grants program, and more recently, the federal government of Canada has offered us a Canada Healthy Communities Initiative grant, which is fabulous. Next slide. We'll just skip through these. And I'm going to pass it on to Manhor.
Thank you, Kari. All right, so we are talking about nature and wellness and connection within ourselves, but I think it's important to kind of set the stage for why it is especially important to be doing it at this time. And of course, as Kari mentioned, we have been in a pandemic for the past 2 years. And during this time, there's been a lot of social isolation, a lot of anxiousness and depression, a lot of people from the youth to the elderly alike, fear and grief, understandably, sleep and trauma and other stresses related to quarantining and just isolation, and just not the best of mental health. There's a lot of different stressors that we have about managing our own health, our loved ones, war. And so this is the time when we really need to find something that we can deeply connect with and really find a way to reduce our anxiety and feel connected. And that's where this presentation will hopefully show you why our programs are trying to tackle all these different things. On. So one of the research conducted by Angus Reid Institute has shown that the effect of COVID has been pretty drastic. So you've got people that have been pulled apart, 82%, and then there's 79% who said that they brought out the worst in people, that COVID-19 brought out the worst in them. 61% of people said that their levels of compassion also weakened during this time. So all of these surveys are indicating that participants in our mindful nature connection programs feel a lot more relaxed, and they feel a deep sense of connection and compassion for one another. So after our programs, we always send out surveys for people to give us some feedback. And so them feeling more relaxed and feeling connected and feeling compassion really combats the COVID's impact. So we want to give you a little bit of a sneak peek into what we do.
I'm going to review some of the research so you have a bit of that information in your back pocket. There's a field of research called forest medicine, and it derives out of Japan, and it's been in existence for approximately 40 years. So it's relatively new, but there are thousands of research studies in this field. In terms of physical health, research shows that this mindful nature connection, which has been referred to as forest bathing or Shinrin-yoku, it actually, spending time, mindful time in nature, can increase the functioning of your immune system so that you can better fight off infections. It can also slow heart rate, lower blood pressure, lower blood sugar, and lower the stress hormone, cortisol. It can also reduce the perception of pain, and this is something we've seen repeatedly in our programming. Now, one thing I want to say is that the effect of nature connection has a moderating effect. So if you start out with, say, low blood pressure as you enter into a program, it's not going to make your blood pressure even lower. It will actually raise it. And if you enter a program with high blood pressure, it will moderate it and bring it down. So it has a very individualized effect. And I find that just fascinating. Another field of research is around emotional health. And we know that this mindful nature connection can improve mood, perceived quality of life, and reduce depression and anxiety. Now, social connection is a whole other area, and it's one that we spend a lot of time with because it's been challenging with COVID. People have been in their own homes trying to protect themselves. And so we have designed these programs to really foster connection. And research shows that mindful nature connection can increase empathy towards one another, and it can also improve our sense of the importance of taking care of ourselves. And nature has this fascinating way of teaching us about interdependence. Now, in terms of cognitive function, we'll just go back. In terms of cognitive function, forest bathing has been shown to not only improve sustained attention, so your ability to really stay attentive, but also to improve your memory. So it's interesting because earlier there was discussion about people with dementia, and there are things that we can do to promote our health and maintain our health, and this is one of those things. Now, you've probably heard of artists like Monet and Van Gogh, and they've created beautiful masterpieces. Well, I don't know whether you know this, but they used mindful nature connection, and often they would spend hours in the natural environment before picking up a paintbrush. And I'm sure you've also heard about writers who go into the forest, maybe a cabin in the woods, and the words just start to flow. So this kind of mindful nature connection can also support creativity, and for those seeking a spiritual wanting to attend to their spiritual well-being, this is a wonderful practice. And now I'm going to very briefly go over 3 studies. The first one is a study where they looked at, they had 2 groups. They were looking at, it was published in the Journal of Cardiology, and it was very medical. They looked at a lot of biomarkers, when you get your blood tests and they showed numbers here and numbers there. Well, these researchers looked at all kinds of numbers associated with the blood. And they had 2 groups of people, and one went into a natural environment for a whole week, for 7 days. And the other, they did similar activities, so it was called a control, and they stayed in an urban environment. And then they did all this blood work, and they found that mindful nature connection improved blood indicators, indicators, cardiovascular indicators that support health well-being, tumor factors, so the work of the cells that fight off cancers, and inflammation biomarkers, so those things that might cause us to have achy and sore joints. And improved mood on top of all of that. Can you imagine? Now, I know this is a study about spending a full week, but it is important, and it may not be possible for us to spend a full week, although I love the idea of creating housing with trees around and green spaces around, and that's, can be so powerful. But this study shows us what can happen when we have, quote, a high dose of nature connection. Next slide. Now, in this study, they looked at virtual forest bathing during COVID, and they looked at 2 groups. One was looking at forest videos, and the other group was looking at videos from an urban environment. And what they found was that those people that were looking at the nature videos, the forest videos, they had their anxiety much, much reduced. Now, this is important to know that in this particular study, it was a short-term effect. So they were watching, I believe it was a 5-minute nature video, and that was pretty much the entire experience. Now with our programming, because we have 2.5 hours, we actually invite people to connect. And if for those of you who may have brought a house plant, I invite you now to sink your fingers into the soil and maybe feel the texture of the soil and also smell the soil. So these are the kinds of things that we'll do in our programming. And there are chemicals in the soil called geosmin, just so that you know, and it can also improve our immunity and our mood. So you can keep that in mind the next time you go for a lovely walk in spring. So the difference between this particular study and what we do is this study looked at just looking at videos, and what we do is we try to have people interacting with their houseplants or even stepping out sometimes, out into a backyard and connecting with a tree, and then coming back and sharing about that experience. So we really try to create opportunities for people to breathe in what's called volatile organic compounds. The trees emit this wonderful chemical called phytoncides. It's very powerful for our health. Next slide. Now this is interesting. This is a study about seniors, forest bathing, and preventing dementia. What they found in their research is that forest bathing improved mental and emotional emotional condition, and it also reduced their feelings of isolation and loneliness. And you probably have heard that in the UK they have a whole department now of Department of Loneliness or something like that, because loneliness actually has all kinds of ripple effects and can affect our health in so many ways, physical and emotional. So when we talk about our programming and our emphasis on social connection, this can be a very powerful thing. And forest bathing, I've seen this over and over. People who didn't know each other, they come together, they spend time together, going through these exercises either in person or online, and then by the end I often we will add a social time if it's online, an informal social time, or if it's in person I have like tea and snacks and people stay. Well, people linger because they've made that social connection and they enjoy it, and so they want to stay a little bit longer. So now the other thing that's interesting about this study is that they found that people were willing at the end of forest bathing to engage in health-related lifestyle change and make different choices. And they were willing to make changes in their life to make sure that they go for more regular visits to green spaces. And this is another thing we do in our programs, is that we give people a taste and we offer learning techniques for connecting to nature, and then we encourage people to go out and find a safe green space, an accessible green space near their home, wherever they are. And so this is a research study that says that, you know what, people are willing to make that lifestyle change. Next slide. I'm going to pass it on to Paul.
Thank you, Kari. Forest bathing, what is it? It's an opening of the senses through sight, sound, smell, touch. You can move your body slowly, breathing deeply, adopting a glaze, soft glaze, slowly strolling through a garden, park, or forest, in any which way that you can do that. Watching fish in an aquarium, looking at nature, photography, photos, doing chair yoga on the outdoor patio, any kind of movement, reading a book in a courtyard. If you move to the next slide. I would like to share Beth's story with you. Beth is a senior who is actively engaged in our programs. Beth has always acted as a resource person for our Nature and Forest Therapy Certification Training program. A couple of months ago, she was a guest speaker who came to speak to our trainees about how she made her indoor garden as part of her self-care routine. What I'm going to share now is based on her presentation, and I'm really glad that Beth gave us permission to share this story. Her story. Beth is 80 years old and an active gardener. Oh boy, can she talk about her garden. Caregiver for her husband with leukemia, and recognizing that that has been something that has been a challenge for her and her husband. Ferns bring back pleasant memories of time in nature. I want to share some of the quotes that she spoke. From my garden, I get great pleasure. I totally absorbed in colors, texture, and fragrances. It's a joy. As I walk by, I pause and I enjoy the way the light shines through the color leaves and immediately calms me and takes me to another place. With the social isolation of COVID, my garden has taught me to find pleasure in the smallest things. These are some beautiful pictures. I have been attentive to the light, temperature, and water needs of each plant, and they repay me with their constant company. Thank you. Over to Kari.
Thank you, Paul. And now we're moving into the part of the experiential presentation where we're going to give you a little taste of a series of 3 videos that we have used in our programs. We always first start with inviting people, and I'll do this now. I invite you to take 3 slow, deep breaths and allow your exhalation to continue longer than your inhalation. So I'm going to say a few words, and I just want you to practice this. This is a way to calm your nervous system. So one thing we do with our participants is we always emphasize that they can make modifications to these invitations. They are just simply invitations. And for some people, you may want to make modifications to your setting and go on full screen. That's up to you if you want to see the video a little bit larger on your screen, or you might want to adjust your volume. You can do these invitations in any position and any location. We've had people indoors and outdoors, sitting upright, standing, moving if that's helpful. For example, those people who are feeling pain in their joints and need to move. And we also have had people who are laying down, reclining. And also we invite people to use the chat feature or speak, and they can have their cameras on, off, or both. And a little bit later, we will be inviting you to share your impressions of the videos. And at that point, if you wish to turn on your video, you're welcome to do that. We also emphasize that people can actually we also begin with like an embodiment practice, and we might show a movement of our arms. But for people who aren't able to move their arms or don't wish to move their arms, we encourage people to visualize moving their arms. And we talk about the importance and the power of visualization, and it's very related to nature connection. So next slide. I'm going to pass it on to Manor. Oh, you're on mute.
All right, I'm just gonna... That's better. All right, everyone. So before we begin, I'm going to do this reading, and I invite everyone to take 3 deep breaths as I say this short little poem by Rachel Carson. Those who contemplate the beauty of the earth, find reserves of strength that will endure as long as life lasts. There is something infinitely healing in the repeated refrains of nature. The assurance that dawn comes after night and spring after winter.
Thank you. And now for the first invitation. What's important in forest bathing or mindful nature connection is first getting a grounding ourselves, so we can do that by connecting to the breath or that gentle sense of gravity pulling us down towards the earth. And then we adopt a soft gaze. In the research, they call it a soft gaze of fascination. And this is not a scientific or analytic view. We're not measuring things. We're not counting things. We're just simply being present to nature. And so in this particular video, I invite you to be present to the pleasant. Our brains have a natural bias, a negativity bias. You may have heard this. It has helped us when we've been in trouble. But what has happened is that there are so many potential dangers that our nervous system is on high alert all the time. And so we need to actually make a concerted effort to focus in on the pleasant things. And the more we do that, the easier it becomes. It creates new neural pathways in the brain. So while you watch this video, I invite you to really expand that sense of pleasure for any image or little video clip that brings you pleasure. So what is pleasant to you will be different for other people. Like everybody has their own thing. But when you come across an image that's pleasant for you, you can expand that sense of pleasantness by bringing a smile to your face or sighing, relaxing, or placing a hand over the heart. So those are 3 things that you can do. And now we'll watch the video. It's about 2.5 minutes long. Thank you. Now, we're going to show you a second video. I just invite you just to take a pause now. Just take it in. And we're going to show a second video. And then at the end of that second video, we will open it up and we will ask you some questions around what did you notice? You know, around your senses, maybe your body, your mind, emotions, these kinds of things. So we're just going to move right now into the second video, and then we're going to have some time for sharing. If we had a full program, we'd actually have quite a bit of time for sharing right now after every invitation, but we've modified it so that you can have a taste and we can actually fit in 3 videos for you. All right, let's show the next invitation is oh, and I'll just say, so Manur, while you're getting that up, I'll just say, I took all of these pictures. I hope that you're enjoying them and the videos. This is a little taste of what my life is like up here in the forest up in the north. Manur, are you able to share screen again?
Yeah.
Great. Now, the thing about mindfulness, oh, the slide before this one, the thing about mindfulness is that it can help us be with all that is. So it's not about erasing things that are unpleasant and just focusing on what's pleasant, but it's about practicing connecting to what's present and being able to hold or be with what might be unpleasant too. So in this video, you'll notice that the mood of the music is a little bit less upbeat. It's a little bit more just present moment, neutral. And so you're invited to open your senses and imagine scent and texture. We're using visual images, but often in the brain there can be a pairing so that one sense, the sense of sight, can trigger another sense, the sense of smell or touch. So I invite you to imagine you're sitting on this rock, this lookout point in Algonquin Park at the peak of fall colors. I imagine you to feel the stone under you. And I also invite you to look at the patterns in the leaves. Patterns in nature, whether that's a tree with branches that split and split and split, or whether it's the little lines in the leaves, these patterns are called fractal patterns. And when we softly gaze upon fractal patterns, it actually activates the parasympathetic or the rest and digest portion of the nervous system. So please enjoy this next video. And now I would like to invite you to take a breath, take it in, and we're going to be asking you, what did you notice? Did you notice any particular color or texture, any scene that particularly was pleasant for you? Did you have any emotions? Or did you have any sensations in your body that you might have noticed? You're invited to use the chat feature, and if that doesn't work for you, you can just unmute yourself and speak. So I think we have a couple of participants. Maybe Norma, would you like to go first?
I see that
Or-
Sue. I see Sue.
Oh, okay,
as
great.
well, unmuted. And Sue, did you want to say something?
Well, I'm trying to keep awake to watch the video. I wonder whether the relaxation make me feel sleepy.
So watching the video made you feel sleepy.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a sign of relaxation. It's a certain sign of relaxation. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sue.
In the chat, Laurel says calming, and Sandy saying calm, happy. I was sitting there on that rock. Thank you, Laurel and Sandy.
Hi, I guess you can't see me. Here we go. I wanted to add that I noticed the flame on the candle, which I've never seen before. And I also was more sensitive to the texture of the rock. And it really felt, it just felt very strong. And I felt like I was being held in just a lovely space.
Thank you, Norma.
Can I just say that every time I see the video of the bird going onto the hand, taking the seed out of the hand, it's just an amazing connection to nature. Just my mind watching it, I feel like for me physically, I can't open my hand. So for me to be really there, present, when you got me to be really present, Kari, I just feel like I was there, part of it.
Thank you, Paul. And you know, this is something that is also, we designed this with neuroscience in mind. When we are observing, for example, my hand in the snow and picking up the snow and letting go of the little snowflakes, or when I have a video of me touching the tree, or with the bird landing on my hand, when other people are watching that, the same area of their brain can be activated, and this is called a mirror neuron effect. And so, yeah, it's one of the things that we consider when we're developing and designing these videos. It gives people like that embodied sense that they're there. But it does require some preparation through, you know, taking breaths and maybe some mindful movement and listening to poetry before people are then ready to move into deeply experiencing what is coming up on the video as their own unique experience.
Thank you, Kari. We have some comments in the chat as well. Donna says, fortunate. And Ivy says, standing on top of the rock made me feel in control of my feelings on top of them. Thank you, Donna and Ivy.
Wonderful. All right, are we ready for the next invitation then?
I think so.
Okay, all right. In this third invitation, you're invited to listen to the sounds of wind, water, and birds. This video will be mostly silent, and this is often what we do in our programs as we move into a deeper sort of mindful state. And when we're allowed to then have the silence and not have the music, then we're able to hear, in this case, very subtle sounds of wind, water, and birds. And these three sounds along with others, have been shown in research to activate that parasympathetic or rest and digest portion of the nervous system. So again, when we can feel calm and rested, when we start to yawn, when we start to feel tired, that is allowing our bodies the opportunity to do some really good restorative healing. So listen to these sounds and also open yourself up with a soft gaze and take in the colors of blue and green. Nature is full of blue and green, and when we have these colors in combination, it can also activate that rest and digest portion of our nervous system and allow us to calm. And again, coming back to our context of being through the pandemic and having complex stressors, including the war, just all these things, caregiving responsibilities or managing healthcare, anything we can do to calm the body allows our body to do some really important healing work. So I invite you to imagine yourself there. You'll see that there's a canoe, and I invite you to jump in on board as we go through a wetland. And at one point, we'll come across a great blue heron. I invite you to imagine the sun, the warmth of the sun on your skin, and maybe the breeze as well. And you may find that it brings up memories, or even a certain image or scene has a metaphorical, it represents a meaning or a message for you. So we'll just move into this third and final invitation, this video, and then we'll do a little share opportunity afterwards.
All right, everyone. It's Kari. If Kari's not here, I can just take the lead on facilitating this. What did you guys think about that video? Were there any things you noticed? Any senses, any memories, any metaphors that came to mind? Anything that caught your attention and made you linger? And how did that feel as it went through your body? Feel free to hop in the chat or just unmute. Did it bring back any memories specifically? We saw the canoe and the water. If there's anyone that has any memories they want to share.
Hi, Donna. Go ahead, Donna.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Just two things. I have a canoe and I canoe in False Creek. And not only is it marvelous for me, it's marvelous for all the people on the shore who speak to us, who wave to us, who speak to us, and you get smiles everywhere. So it's almost like when you're in a canoe, you have the mindfulness of the other people, not just your own. It's quite awesome, actually. Met amazing people. So thank you. Just looking at the solitude, and we've actually had a seal follow us all the way back to where I keep the canoe in False Creek, all the way. So it was like, just looking at the canoe, I was thinking again how fortunate we are that we do have waterways to canoe in, and that even though you're doing it yourself, somehow the mindfulness and the quiet of the canoe, the quiet and the mindfulness in other people. And the other thing is, I used to live in Sedona, Arizona, and we used to walk once a week. We walked in silence for an hour and a half, and wow, is that ever an experience and a half in the red rocks in the woods. So that's another thing I would recommend is that when people get into nature, that you do it not talking, just silent, and then you can hear all the marvelous things you miss. Anyway, thanks a lot. It was wonderful to hear it and share it and to experience it. Thanks.
Thank you, Donna.
Are there anyone else who wants to unmute and share their experience? We have a couple of comments in the chat. I can read those. I have White Blossom. I think this is from the first invitation, who says calm, beauty, seeing vibrant colors, wanting winter to be over despite the beauty of the scenes. This is from the first invitation. Thank you, White Blossom. As for this invitation, Sandy says, a reminder to slow down. Memories of what I enjoy most. Kim Agar says, happy childhood memories on the family ranch. Marjorie says, the video reminded me of my walk around Burnaby Lake. White Blossom says, that would surely help me to sleep. Spiritually, how nature can connect us to what is real. Quiet appreciation. Very, very true. Darshan says, mesmerizing, very calming and relaxing. And Laurel says, the sound of the water and the birds calm me. Sorry about my phone. Is there anyone else who wants to share any memories that came to them or any other comments? While Kari's preparing the tea ceremony, we can move on to some of the quotes that we received when we put out the surveys for after our program. So after our program, we let our participants give us their thoughts and what they enjoyed most. And these are some of the comments that we've received. People say I became relaxed, cheerful, hopeful, and my pain subsided. Learning to use nature, which is a free resource, to build my resilience and give me the tools to bounce back from the pandemic and other stressors in my life. Our programs have helped people find the time to take out a bit for their own self-care. And the forest imagery lessened my anxiety. Group meditation also reduced my social loneliness. Someone said the time seemed to slow. And another comment, which is on the tea ceremony, which you'll be seeing shortly, they said the candle lighting and the tea ceremony, I felt a spiritual and emotional sense of letting go of the grief I've been holding on to. The tree meditation made me think about being rooted in our past, living in the present, but reaching for the future as time passes. And our last quote here says, "This program makes no demands or judgments and offers the participant the opportunity to find quiet, respite, and solace in the beauty of nature." And we hope some of you were able to relate to some of these comments that we received through this very short program that we've had.
Looks like Kari is ready for us.
Oh, wonderful. So what I'll do is I'll stop screen sharing here and I'll spotlight Dave right here. And can everyone see Kari with her beautiful tea ceremony setup?
I'm here outside. You'll see that we still have ice and snow. Not too cold, actually. It's kind of nice to come out without my big parka on. And we have some chickadees around, so I was just seeing if they wanted to come and visit. They may. I'm going to put the seed here. We'll see if they come. So now is the time, and we always conclude our programs with a tea ceremony. Today I made some white pine tea, and it's a nice way to conclude a nature connection program, especially if we're in person. And sometimes if we're not in person, I invite people to make themselves a cup of herbal tea. And so I'm going to pour the first cup of tea. You can see the steam coming off in the thermos here. Our last program, it was -35. And I threw the tea up in the air and it froze into mist. It was quite magical. It was also evening, so all the candles were lit. So as you can imagine, this is a nice atmospheric way to conclude our time together. It's a nice ritual. So I'm just going to stand up here. I offer this first cup of tea to the earth, to the source, to the resource that offers us so much. And now I'm going to pour myself a cup of tea. Do you want one?
Sure.
Actually, my husband behind the screen, I'll offer him some. And I'm just going to describe what it tastes like and what it smells like. I can smell the white pine, and it's hotter than I expected. And I can taste the pine too. It's a nice scent and smell. And thing about white pine is tea is that it's very high in vitamin C. So as you can see, candle went out here. I always enjoy making the little mandala, the arrangement here for our concluding tea ceremony. Just gonna pass, I guess at this point, I believe we're doing our concluding comments. Is that right, Paul? And Manor?
Yes, we can start.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just before we do our concluding comments, I just want to thank each and every one of you for joining us today and for giving a little taste of what nature connection can look like. I'm going to pass it on to MK. Sorry, Manor.
Thank you, Kari. MK is also fine. Yeah, so thank you everyone for joining us today. And we've used these nature connection programs to complement other forms of healthcare. So whatever you're currently doing for your health, this is an additional complement to that. So adding this is a great way to
We seem to have lost Manur.
And we do this using a peer support model to form a community and a friendship. And altogether, that provides an immediate, free, and safe form of mental, social, and physical health support. Thank you for sharing this experience.
Okay. Thank you very much, Manur. Your connection started to lose there. I just want to remind everyone, that you can do this. We can do this indoor, we can do it outdoors, you can do it alone, you can do it with your family or friends. We hope that you've been able to be inspired to consider making mindful nature connection a part of your regular practice of self-care. It has been a big part of my life, a new part of my life actually, and I've seen it transform the lives of others. It has been a powerful way to build communities and care during challenging times, especially among people who might otherwise be isolated, who are dealing with many forms of stress. We hope to see you at one of our programs in the near future. We're going to make sure that you have the information about how you could join us. Finally, we want to thank Dr. Mary Lou Herring and Christine Barakas, who invited us here today. Kari, Manur, and I are pleased to have had this opportunity to contribute to the Providence Health Dialogue on Aging. So thank you.
Well, we in turn want to thank you so much for being with us this afternoon, sharing all of your gifts with us. How important for everyone to have the opportunity to be truly thinking about well-being in the light of nature, which is about us. And thank you both very much, or all three of you very much. That was a great pleasure to meet you and to learn of your work. Thank you. Christine, are there any final comments in the chat box to be raised?
One reflection here was from Susan, who was reminded of sitting on her front steps on a summer morning. Obviously, that was one of the warmer shots than the closing tea, but another lovely recollection and just words of gratitude. And as with always, we will follow up with a newsletter that has the contact details and the link to the video. And I do see a couple of people coming on camera. I wonder if there are any more questions for our presenters today before we log off.
Christine, can I just mention, Christine, that we have an Accessible Nature Wilderness program set for May 14th from 1 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. And maybe I'll get Manur to put in the chat box our how to register. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Manur.
No problem, everyone. So definitely please do feel free to register at anwp@ecowisdom.ca. And for any other questions, direct them to Kari at ecowisdom.ca. She'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you so much.